And put some reference on live.
Live.
Okay. As long as
And I'm gonna keep it up.
okay. Would you want to know?
Is it working? Okay. Okay, so what do I do? Turn it around? Can you stand here and just make sure you can see?
So the fun part about these events is we also broadcast them virtually. Believe it or not, people across the world, I'm going to say question mark because some Canadians also watch this, want to eat lunch with you. So how exciting. So we wanted to make sure that the video was able to go live for them. So welcome to our spring literary lunch. I'm very excited about the titles I have to share with you today. I do have just a couple of observations, which is, interestingly, the spring book catalogs were filled with some really awesome memoirs. Fiction was a little harder, which I think is really interesting. And some of those books with like heft and depth, I think, come out winter and fall. This could be my imagination. But spring feels like memoir and maybe fun beach reads. I do have some historical fiction titles to share with you. So there's a wide mix, but it was interesting just looking through the catalogs that I think there's a delineation for publishers about what comes out each season. So we're going to start with what's on your card. So you can keep eating lunch. I just want you to know that this resource is here for you after lunch. This is what we're going to kind of walk through first. This gives you an overview of some of my favorite titles coming out. And I put release dates on there for you. And Olivia was very kind and gave you a pre-order sheet. So if you find out that you want to order some of these, mark them on your sheet. You can take it up to the register at the end. You'll get a discount. And you can know that these will be pre-ordered for you. And in fact, some books came out today that you ordered at Winter Literary Lunch. So check with Olivia and Lucy before you leave today. So the first book I want to talk about for our literary lunch is Southern Lady Code by Helen Ellis. Now, I love Helen Ellis. She's actually a really great fiction writer. Her short story collection, American Housewife, is outstanding. If you are scared of short stories as a genre, please try that one because they're funny, witty, well-written, short and sweet. It's a great collection. Southern Lady Code is her new book, which is all essays. So American Housewife was kind of her short story collection, and now she's written some essays, and every woman in here should want to read it based on the title alone. What I love is she writes in both a beautiful but also very accurate way about Southern life. So this isn't a sugar-coated version of the South. She has moved to New York, I believe, is where she lives now. And she, I think, is originally from Alabama. And as somebody who went to college in Alabama, I just feel a kinship with her. I find her to be very refreshing and funny. Her book is called Southern Lady Code. I also really like this because it's a short, almost gift format. So it's a great Mother's Day, I think, Mother's Day gift. Southern Lady Code by Helen Ellis. It's so, somehow, I think I wrote on here, it's profound and hilarious. And I don't know how authors are able to do that, but she does both really well. That is out on April 16th. I also wanted to talk to you about Strangers and Cousins. This book I just finished this weekend, so I have thoughts. It is definitely literary fiction. So in the book world, they talk about commercial fiction, think James Patterson, like books you kind of fly through, and then literary fiction like Fates and Furies or something like that. So that's kind of the scale we're talking about. Strangers and Cousins fits decidedly into literary fiction. You knew I was going to pick it up because it's about a dysfunctional family. We've talked before about my love for dysfunctional families. This family lives in New York, or I'm sorry, I think Pennsylvania, and there's not only a dysfunctional family, just listen to this, guys. It's a weekend of wedding festivities, okay? So also box check. And there's a It's a small town, it's going through some changes, a dilapidated old house, like all of the things I love. So basically, this family has lived in this small town for generations, and their daughter's having their wedding, her wedding this weekend, and everybody kind of comes to town. At the same time, the town is changing because Hasidic Jews are moving into the area. And so there's these questions about belonging, which, you know, I like books about that. There's questions about, do you let your town change and evolve, or do you hold on tight to what your town has always been? Something I think those of us who live in Thomasville can certainly kind of reckon with. And I just think it's incredibly well written. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, it's weird. So, meaning, at the end of every chapter, and I think this is super clever, but I know it's weird. At the end of every chapter, it ends with talking about, from the moon's perspective, talking about a mouse who lives in the house, the mouse's perspective. And that sounds weird, but somehow this author makes it work. And I can't get over, I finished this book, and I know there will be characters from this book that will stay with me. I'm not going to say forever, but they're going to stick around a long time. The husband in this book is named Walter, and his wife has nicknamed him Stalwart. He will stay with me forever. I just adore him so. Tim is like the little boy. This is a large, quirky family. Tim is adorable, frequently running around the house with their clothes on. I just found him to be wonderful. These people felt very real and dear to me. So this is a unique book. It's kind of strange, kind of quirky, but I really liked it. Strangers and Cousins comes out on May 14th. All right, in the nonfiction realm, I am very excited and enthusiastic because it's really hard to read about one hefty nonfiction. I'm kind of saying memoir because I kind of fly through those, but I mean hefty, thought-provoking nonfiction. So in February, I read Dope Sick, which is about the opioid crisis. And in March, I've been reading a book called Eloquent Rage. And this is the book I think I would like to read in April. It's called Bias. It's by Jennifer Everhart. She is a psychologist and professor at Stanford. And she is talking all about cultural or unconscious bias. So mostly this does have to do with race, but it just has to do with the way we approach the world and how our worldviews kind of bias us when we watch the news, when we hear something going on, the current events that are happening in our world, when we interact with other people, what kind of biases do we go into? And if you think you don't have them, that's not true. I'm so sorry to be the person to break that to you. But we do. We all have biases. And so I'm very excited to read about this from a kind of social scientific perspective. I have the advanced reader copy of this, and I've liked what I've seen so far. So it's Biased by Jennifer Everhart. Comes out at the end of this month, March 26th. Okay, switching gears a little bit to something maybe more light and fun. How many of you have read Ruth Reichl? Oh, I love her. I love her so much. Weirdly, I like her. I've never read Gourmet Magazine. I am not a foodie. I have the taste of a 12-year-old. But I find what Ruth Reichl writes, I own one of her cookbooks just because the prose is so good. So her new book is called Save Me the Plums. This is really about the closing of Gourmet Magazine. So I immediately was taken back to like Devil Wears Prada or something like that. But it's somebody with playing the role of a boss. I was also really intrigued with how Ruth Reichl kind of had to transform into a boss. She had to become the editor of this magazine. She had no editorial experience. She was a writer prior to being editor there, but this was new territory for her. And so I loved reading about the magazine, how much she loved those people, the people that she worked with, how much work and talent they put into that magazine is so interesting and uplifting too, because I love when people are good at their jobs, and I love when they love what they do, and you can tell Ruth Reichl loved what she did. So Save Me the Plums is kind of the story of Gourmet Magazine. I never subscribed to Gourmet Magazine. I was not super familiar with it. I knew of it. So even if you are not a Gourmet Magazine fan, or not even a Ruth Reichl fan, I think there's stuff in here for you. Her food writing, I don't think there's anybody who quite compares. It's outstanding. She makes you kind of engage all the senses while you're reading. And she's got a couple of really good-looking recipes in this book that even I am thinking about trying. So Save Me the Plums by Ruth Reichl comes out on April 2nd. Another book coming out on April 2nd, and I don't know if this falls in the historical fiction category. I don't kind of know what year we kind of make the delineation. But Beyond the Point by Claire Gibson is a book that I know Claire through the internet. And so I'm always hesitant sometimes when I read books by somebody I know. I don't want to give it more praise than it is due, just because I really like them as a person. But I do really like Claire as a person. And her book introduced me to a world I really was not familiar with or had read much about. So Claire grew up on West Point, on the campus of West Point. This book is fiction about a group of women who meet at West Point in 2001, right before 9/11. So it watches these young women who kind of graduate from high school, they go to West Point, they think they're gonna have a certain type of West Point experience. And then they wind up obviously having a very different one. And their world is kind of completely wrecked and changed. The three women at the heart of the book are so unique, and each one is really fleshed out really well, which sometimes I think authors who have too many characters kind of sharing their narratives, it can get kind of muddy and confusing, but I knew who each of these women were. They're very different, very interesting, and it follows them and their friendship through the years. So it takes place over, I think, about a 10-year period. I thought West Point was in Washington, D.C., so like I literally knew nothing. And so I loved I felt like I was at West Point. And I love getting to read about being a woman at West Point and what that looks like, and the challenges that face a woman who is entering into the armed forces. I don't read a lot about that population. I forget that we're still fighting a war. And I appreciate what Claire has done because now I remember. And I think that's what fiction can help us do. It can help us remember what's going on in the world, kind of recenter us, refocus us. Beyond the Point by Claire Gibson. What's interesting about this is it's releasing, I think, in hardback and paperback. I think it'll make a good book club book in the future. This is her debut novel, but I think there's a lot in here, and the setting is really what sticks with me still. It's that West Point community that I feel like I knew nothing about, and now I know a lot about. Okay, another memoir for your list. I kind of had to really narrow down which memoirs I was going to talk about. It's called Once More We Saw Stars. This is by Jason Green. I was familiar with Jason's story, and look, this is hard subject matter, I just need to give you a heads up. But I had read his story, I believe it was in the New York Times, called Children Don't Always Live. And basically, he and his wife lived in New York City with their beautiful little girl. Truly just a freak accident, and a brick fell from a building in New York City and hit their little girl. They took her to the hospital and she died. And that essay, this is how I felt about Elephant in the Room. If you're not sure if this is for you, go read the New York Times article. It was his op-ed. It's called Children Don't Always Live. And if you are hooked, and I think his writing will hook you, then this memoir, even though it's heavy and hard, remember how we all felt reading When Breath Becomes Air? Sometimes we need to read hard things. Sometimes we do. And I'm aware that people are sensitive readers, and I don't want to force something down your throat. But I think his writing is really powerful. And in his essay for the New York Times, he talked about he was still a parent. Like, they had a little boy, so they had to continue parenting. And she was still his little girl. And so that doesn't change just because somebody has died. And so I really think his story is very powerful. I have a feeling, I also just wanted you to be aware of it, because I think he'll probably make like the morning show rounds, I would suspect. He was the editor of like a music magazine. And so his writing is genuine and real. And I hesitate to read the whole thing, but I'm going to. But it's really good. It comes out May 14th. I really like his voice. And then this is what I didn't know, Beyond the Point, is that historical fiction? It's 2001, I'm not sure. But Courting Mr. Lincoln is for sure historical fiction. Actually, this really reminds me, Mary Jane, of the Jonathan Putnam series. And I actually feel a little bit sorry for Jonathan because so Jonathan Putnam has written these really wonderful mysteries about Lincoln and Speed. Speed was his law partner back before Abraham Lincoln became who we know as Abraham Lincoln. And he's been here. Jonathan Putnam has poured his heart and soul into this research. He did not write this book. So Jonathan Putnam has this great mystery series. I think the publishing world perhaps caught on. And so we have a book called Courting Mr. Lincoln, which has gotten a star review already from Kirkus. It's kind of being released to very positive reviews. It's out on April 23rd. Basically, you get to see Abraham Lincoln before he was a politician and before he was president. And so his best friend was named Joshua Speed. And I love this because I like books about male friendship. We don't get a lot of them. And Speed and Lincoln were apparently like really close, like slept in the same tiny little apartment. I think perhaps even the same tiny little bed. And they were law partners together. And then Mary Todd enters the picture. And I like that according to the reviews I've read, we're going to get a different look at Mary Todd because I think we get a really tough look at Mary Todd through a lot of history and literature. I don't think we always see her painted in the best light. So I'll be interested to see how this author kind of maybe fleshes her out a little bit more and gives us something to grasp onto. Again, this is historical fiction. You're going to kind of get a look at Lincoln before he became who we know as Abraham. Okay, that's like my list I want you to walk away with today. These are kind of the highlights. I am going to run through a longer list. These names are not written down anywhere except maybe on your pre-order sheet. Okay, and I do need to give a disclaimer that a couple of books you're hearing about are shelf subscriptions. So when you do your pre-ordering, Olivia and Lucy are going to kind of have your back. And we're going to make sure you're not ordering things that you already have ordered from us without them. Okay, so the first thing I want to tell you is a book out today is, again, I'm trying to read more nonfiction. I really think this is going to be good. It's called First, and it's about Sandra Day O'Connor. And I love even the back blurb is so good. It's like something about before Hillary Clinton did this, before Ruth Bader Ginsburg did this, Sandra Day O'Connor was first. I love that. It gives me chills. It's so good. This is like the biography of Sandra Day O'Connor. She didn't write it, a historian wrote it. It's hefty, but it looks really good. So if you've been wanting to do a deep dive into Sandra Day O'Connor's life, this would be a good time to do it because this book looks excellent. I bet it would make a really good audiobook too if you go that direction. I also want to tell you about a very funny book that I can't stop raving about called I Miss You When I Blink. Yeah. It's by Mary Laura Philpott. She works at Parnassus, but I read this book when it came out like as an ARC, as an advanced reader copy, probably 6 months ago, and I still love it so much. I have never felt so known while reading a book. And Mary Laura is a few years older than I am. I don't really know how old she is. But I felt like she's leading the way. Like I was reading it, and I was like, "You sound just like me. This is what I'll be like when I'm more of a grown-up than I already am." So I think her voice is so strong. She is so talented. This is on the cover of your indie next list you got in front of you. It's got a really striking cover. So that is a collection of essays. I think Southern Lady Code and I Miss You When I Blink kind of could pair really nicely together. Okay, out on April 16th is a book called The Second Mountain. I wanted to mention it because we sold a ton of copies of David Brooks' Road to Character. This is his new book. So David Brooks is a New York Times opinion writer. I am very curious about The Second Mountain because I kind of read the premise of it and I'm intrigued. So it's basically the first mountain you climb is the mountain of your career and you're kind of trying to figure out who you are. But then you get there and you realize, wait, the mountain I was supposed to be climbing is over there. And so it's all about that second mountain. And he believes in life we have 4 commitments. I believe he said they're to your family, to your spouse, to your family, to your philosophy or your faith, to your vocation. There's a 4th one. I knew I should have written it down, but I tried. So he's writing about nonfiction, a kind of self-help personal growth type of book. Road to Character, we sold several. I mean, I think it was a bestseller for us a couple of years ago when it came out. So I just wanted to make you aware. The Second Mountain comes out on April 16th. Again, he's somebody that I suspect you'll be seeing a lot of because he's such a popular columnist. Let's see. On April 9th, this is one I think most of you will be excited about. I have a bookseller confession, which is I never read The Lilac Girls. I'm sorry. I know. I'm so sorry. But Lost Roses comes out April 9th. And this is, I'm not going to call it a sequel, but I'm going to call it a related novel. So if you liked Lilac Girls, she's taking some of those same characters and building onto them. So it's called Lost Roses, and it's out April 9th. A few books that are out now, but that I did not cover at the winter lunch. If Then, which is a book Olivia and I are so curious about, but only Chris has read it. But it's called If Then. And the premise is, what if you could have almost like an alternate reality showing you your future? So it's got these 4 couples or people out in the West, and they are, one woman kind of wakes up and she sees this vision of her husband in a hospital bed. And how does that change the life she leads right now? So if you like kind of the speculative, I call it speculative fiction. Basically, it's fiction with like a weird twist, like a slightly odd element. Like I like The Dreamer. That's kind of speculative fiction. It's fiction with kind of something weird going on. So If Then kind of takes, I think, what we all think about a lot. Like, what if we could predict what's happening next in our lives, or what if we could kind of get a glimpse? Would that change the way we act right now? Which makes the title, I think, very clever. So If Then is out right now. See You in the Piazza is out right now as well. You guys, are you Frances May's fans? So if you're not, I was able to hear her live several years ago now. I really like her. So that book is all about Italy. So if you've got a trip coming up, or if you just want to fake a trip to Italy, that's what I love about literature. See You in the Piazza is out right now. She's got some recipes in there. She is an expert. I mean, she's lived over there. She knows all about the Italian world and landscape. So if you want to take a big vacation, or if you are really planning a vacation to Italy, I think this would be a fun travel memoir. Okay, I know you know I love dysfunctional families, but I actually also really like vacation books. And here's what I mean. Not just books like that I take on vacation, but I mean books set on vacation. Because vacations are always like one step from going really wrong. I feel like they could go terribly. And so there's this new book out called Tomorrow There Will Be Sun. I adore, and it's out in paperback. I love the book Do Not Become Alarmed. I cannot believe it didn't catch on more than it did when it came out a couple years ago. It's by Molly Malloy. I think we have a couple copies. I love that book. That was a book about a vacation gone wrong. The children go missing. It's horrendous. But Tomorrow There Will Be Sun does kind of the same thing. The stakes are a little less high. If you read Big Little Lies, or really if you saw the HBO miniseries, and you were obsessed with those beautiful big houses and these very obviously wealthy people, Tomorrow There Will Be Sun is for you. Because it's these very wealthy people who go on this vacation to Mexico, and they rent a giant house, and it's this one family, and then they vacation with another family. Which, mistake. Like, I just, no offense, I just don't know why I would do that. But okay. So they stay in this house together, and tensions are kind of high. Secrets are starting to come to the surface. Too much time in an enclosed space together. So you can kind of feel, if anybody read The Dinner when it came out a few years ago, and The Dinner kind of builds, and you know something's coming, that's how Tomorrow There Will Be Sun feels. And I love it because it also acknowledges that when you travel to another country, yeah, you're on vacation, but the country is still functioning as it normally functions. And so some things happen in Mexico while they're there that make them realize, oh, there's a world outside ourselves. So anyway, it is, I think it's really good. It's one of those books that I read, and perhaps I won't remember 6 months from now, you know what I mean? Like, I'll be like, oh yeah, I think I read that. But while I was reading it, it was like a page turner, and I wanted to know what was happening. So Tomorrow There Will Be Sun is out right now. Perfect beach book. It won't stress you out if you're actually on vacation. That's what I meant. Okay. I just finished this weekend a book called Normal People by
How many books did you read?
I did three. Because I had 2 movies yesterday, so there was nothing I could do but read. So I read 3 books this weekend. My husband is working a lot, so lucky you guys. So I read Normal People. I don't know if you're familiar. Sally Rooney is an Irish author. She makes me very mad because she's 27 and she's already written these awesome books, and I don't understand it. But she wrote Conversations with Friends, which came out last year to a lot of acclaim. It came out in America last year. Normal People has already been out overseas. It is releasing here on April 16th. This book reminded me a little bit of One Day, which was a book that came out several years ago where it followed one couple, but it only showed them one day. They're like on the same day every year, and kind of showed how their relationship progressed. I thought it was really inventive and interesting. This kind of takes this, they weren't really a couple, but a guy and a girl who meet in high school, and then it follows them through college. I love books like this. I like books on college campuses. But the intensity of this book, now this is PG-13 for sure. So just know that. But I read it all in one sitting because I just was so enmeshed with these people, and I just needed to know what was going to happen to them. And I really did finish it, and almost, I don't know if this is a plus for the book or not, I really did almost feel physically ill because I was like, oh no. And it doesn't end badly or anything. It's just it's like when you finish a book and you know now you're done, and now those people are gone and you can't talk to them anymore. I don't know. It felt I was very much captivated by this book. I don't know about Conversations with Friends. I fully intend now to go back and read it because I really liked Normal People. If you like one day books set on college campuses, page turners that you can't put down, this definitely had a slight romantic storyline, although that's not the point. Like, there's definitely romantic things happening, but it's a lot about who you are when you're 18, 21. Are you still the same? Are you not? I really liked it. Normal People by Sally Rooney, out on April 16th. Out on April 2nd, this is a nonfiction title that I'm also curious about. It's kind of a memoir, but I suspect it's going to have some social science in it as well. It's called A Sin by Any Other Name. It is written, let me see if I can remember, it's like Robert E. Lee III, okay? So this is a descendant of Robert E. Lee, and he, apparently, I do not remember this, but after the events in Charlottesville, he kind of gave a really impassioned either TED Talk or speech, something that went viral on the internet about the role the South continues to play in racism. And so I am very curious about this. I have not gotten an advanced reader copy, but the kind of pre-release reviews have been really interesting. He is a white author, but some of the reviewers were people of color and were commending him for some of what he was having to say. So I'm curious about this, particularly for those of us who were born and raised in the South. And I think it's interesting that somebody with very clear Southern roots has something to say about this, and maybe something different to say. So it's called A Sin by Any Other Name, out on April 2nd. Okay, Before We Were Yours is one you already probably have heard about, but I did want to let you know it's coming out in paperback, I think on May 21st. And the reason I want to tell you is because a lot of book clubs, I think, have been dying to read this as a book club, and some book clubs prefer paperbacks. So Before We Were Yours, it's based, if you're not familiar, it's based on true historical events. It has to do with child trafficking, and was on the New York Times bestseller list. I mean, it's been forever for it to come out in paperback because it's been on the bestseller list for so long. I also wanted to let you know, and this isn't anywhere either because I just found out about it, but did you guys read Far Outside the Ordinary by Chrissy Elrod? She's a local author. She's from Tallahassee, but I thought it was really, and not all independently published books are great, but I actually thought hers was really powerful. It was a memoir. Her husband had died from cancer at a pretty young age. It came out, we held a couple of events for her here, but I really like that book. She has a new one coming out in April, so I'm going to try to get her here again. But the new book is called Chasing Ordinary. So Far Outside the Ordinary, Chasing Ordinary. Her book covers are very striking. She is delightful. And her, again, I can't vouch for every independently published author out there, but I think she really tried hard to work with an editor to really, her writing is really great. So I really loved her first book. I'm excited to read the second one. It's not anywhere because I just found out about it. So Chasing Ordinary. Okay, cool. That was a lot of books. Okay. Okay, I just wanted to show you, these come out every month, and I think I told you this last time. These come out along with Book Page. These are great resources if you are an avid reader and you want to know what's new and happening. So on this list, I Miss You When I Blink, Save Me the Plums, like all of these are books we talked about. I read The Girl He Used to Know. I thought it was good. Like 3.5 stars good. Let's see. The editor, we talked about this at Winter Literary Luncheon. The editor is about, gosh, it had so much potential, and I think it was good. But it was about a young writer who discovers his editor is Jackie Kennedy. And so I really love the Jackie Kennedy portions of that book in particular. It's by the guy who did, it had a dog on the cover. I sound like a customer. Lily, I think it's called Lily and Octopus. So he's already written that book. People liked it. I think it's they're comparing this to Eleanor Oliphant. I think Eleanor Oliphant was far more compulsively readable than the editor. But if you have any Kennedy fascination at all, which I definitely do, then the editor would be fun for you. Fun for a book club. I am reading Trust Exercise by Susan Choi right now. I just can't talk about it yet because I don't know how I feel yet. Okay, those are the books. Heavy comes out in paperback. That's supposed to be outstanding. And it is on here as well.
Yeah.
I have not.
Heard anything about Queen or read?
I have not read anything about that one yet. Is it on there? Okay, I haven't. Okay, I'll deal with that one, because maybe I'll talk about it on the podcast.
Okay.
Listen later. Because we're gonna do a screen review on the podcast too. What else? Do you have questions about a particular title on there? I don't have books page for you because the new one isn't out yet. The April one isn't out. But is there anything you are interested in reading or are curious about, or anything you want me to go back and review? If you missed virtually, or if you walked in just a couple minutes late, I did just want you to know some books we talked about in the Winter Literary Luncheon. I did read and can now officially vouch for Inheritance by Dani Shapiro is one. It is outstanding memoir. And then Daisy Jones and the Six, which Sue confirmed for me, you guys would like just as much as I would. Like, age doesn't matter. so it's very good. Yeah, it's 70s fictional rock band. I can't get over how original it is. I can't. I just think it's so clever. Okay. Yes.
The 20 bucks one about bees. Did you read the the one about bees that was made into a movie?
Secret Life of Bees.
Yeah.
I did read that. I did. I liked it just fine.
Okay.
Liked it just fine.
You don't know anything about this?
Let me see. Where is it?
Middle column.
Oh, the honey bus. I don't. I am not familiar with that one. I don't know anything about it, sadly to say. But Secret Life of Bees, I really like Sue Monk's Kid. I actually thought Secret Life of Bees was fine, but her memoirs are really good. She wrote one about, she wrote it with her daughter called Traveling with Constraint, which is really good. And then she wrote one about conflicting kind of struggles with feminism called The Dance of the Dissident Daughter, which is also outstanding. So I really like her memoirs. Okay. Anything else? I have no.
What do you think of the amount of fiction, so they're just holding it for summer?
Yeah, that's what I said before. So it felt very heavy memoir and nonfiction. And I think, I don't know, but I feel like publishers frequently, their hefty kind of meaty books come out in fall and winter.
Right.
That could be my imagination. But frequently the fall list is full of, it's almost like Oscar season. Like, you know, the Oscar movies are coming out for award season. That's kind of what it feels like. But I had a really hard time when I was going back through our ordering to kind of compile what am I excited about. Much of them were memoir this time, and that's not usual. So I think summer list, and I already know some titles that are going to be on the summer list, and I'm so excited. There's a book coming out in July that I just want to put in everyone's hand who walks in the store. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm going to tell you in the summer. But if you have been listening to the podcast, you probably heard me talk about that already. But I am really excited about some summer titles. But I think you're right, Vanessa. I think a lot of fiction is, for whatever reason, coming out in the summer. And I don't know if that's intentional. I feel like I haven't been in the book world long enough to make a judgment on that, but that's how it feels to me. It feels seasonal. What else?
And Heavy, can you tell more about, I haven't heard of it. Heavy, you said it's
Heavy.
coming out of paperback?
Okay, so Heavy is coming out of paperback. We've got it out in hardback. It has been up for some award buzz, but it is a memoir again about, if I'm not mistaken, kind of. Did you guys read Elephant in the Room? I think it's kind of talking about some of the same issues as Elephant in the Room, but it's also talking about African American culture. So I think the people who I know who read it, I think like Kate, who used to work here, I think she's already read it if I'm not mistaken. It's really good. Supposed to be really good. So, and a lot of people prefer paperbacks, so I just like to let you know, like they're coming out.
I am.
Yes.
Paperback, that was really good.
Yes.
I read that.
That got a lot of buzz as well, a lot of kind of word buzz. That's another memoir though. Like I don't know, we're really heavy on memoir right now. And Trust Exercise that I'm reading is in your little thing. It's good, but it is Hunter, my friend Hunter refers to it as stream of consciousness, and it doesn't feel like stream of consciousness, but there's no chapter breaks. Like there's none. And I think as a reader, I have discovered I really like chapter breaks. And I don't know if that's my waning attention span because of the internet. I don't know, but it's taking me a minute just to get into the rhythm of, okay, we're never gonna pause. Like we're just gonna keep going. But it's set, Trust Exercise is set on like in the 1980s. I almost am picturing like Fame, like the show Fame, because it's kind of this art school campus, and I really like the characters I'm being introduced to. But I'm not far enough along to be able to say, I want to read this. I like it. Okay, because we've got a little bit of time, I would like to know what you're reading right now. So we're just gonna go around, we're gonna start with you, Mary Jane, we're gonna kind of weave our way around, because I just wanna know what people are reading right now. I am reading whatever I just told you about, Trust Exercise. I'm reading Trust Exercise, and Eloquent Rage. I'm trying to read a fiction and a nonfiction together. Mary Jane, what are you reading?
I'm reading, Sue Frederick sent me a couple of her books.
Yes.
And, I'm reading the one that's based in A Good Year for Roses.
Yes.
And, so I'm reading poster.
It is supposed to be great. She is going to be at the library, and we're trying to maybe get her for an author event here. So stay tuned.
I just finished Daisy Jones and loved it. And I'm real curious to see, like, women of my, I was thinking women of my age would enjoy it more than maybe Annie's age, because it's kind of our time in the 70s. And there's a lot of precursors of things that are going on now that they didn't know then. And, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but there's not a hardcore fad, really uncomfortable drugs, but the drug stuff is pretty heavy if that's a thing, but really good. I just finished, I've been doing a lot of kind of stack on the table reading. I just finished Some Kind of Lover.
Yeah, along.
And I really like that. I was stunned, and I actually Googled to make sure. I was stunned that it was written by a man.
Okay, so when I read that, I read it with my book club, and now look, I don't have children, but some of my book club's like, oh, you can tell this was written by a man. I'm like, no, you can't. Like, I think it is so good. Like, he did such a good job. It was a show subscription of mine a year ago, I think. It's out in paperback now. It's really good.
The part where she writes, she has a nanny come in. She's a poet, so she has the nanny come in so she can go to her office and work, and instead she goes to her office and sleeps on.
Even without children.
And I also finished American Marriage.
Okay, good. If you liked An American Marriage, I do still think Kara's Eating of Ravenously Hungry Girls is a good comp.
That's the one I have on hold at the library.
Okay.
I've made a decision not to read any more books that have girls in the title when the books are about grown women.
Yeah, oh, that's true. Yeah. Why are we doing that? What are you reading?
I just finished Friday Night Knitting Club.
Okay.
With the book club.
Yeah, oh, that's fun.
We had a blind date, and that was my,
Oh, cute.
and I enjoyed it. And I'm just getting ready to read, what Crawdads.
Oh, good. You're in for a treat. That's you.
Well, I usually have a fiction and nonfiction, and I'm probably a little behind, but my nonfiction is Searching for Stars on an Island in Maine.
Okay.
That was last love.
Okay, good.
And then, again, kind of old, but Eleanor Oliphant.
Yes.
Oh, I love
We just
that.
talked about
it.
Yeah.
Oh,
She sticks with you too.
Oh,
She's a character who sticks with you.
so compelling,
Yeah.
so fascinating,
Yeah.
so.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. Sally, what are you reading?
I'm reading J.K. Rowling's latest, which is Roger Galbraith.
Okay. Olivia Larson.
There's not much to it because
Yeah. Okay.
and Mr. Rogers.
Oh, good.
The Good Neighbor.
Oh, is it good? Is that good so far? Okay. I love that if you guys haven't seen the documentary, I've just sobbed both times I've watched it. So I watched it in the theater expecting to look around and see other people also with tear-strewn faces, but I was alone. No one else looked as distraught as I did. It was on TV the other night, and I just had to stop and watch it. There's a powerful scene in that documentary that just hit me every time across.
I've just finished Euphoria.
Oh, okay.
And that's a story, if you don't know it, it's based on Margaret Mead's life. And it's quite interesting. And right now I'm doing The Gathering by Anne Enright about an Irish family and a wake. And if you want dysfunction, I highly recommend it.
Give me a wake.
Irish family. And I've just reread, for purposes of talking about it, Their Eyes Are Watching God. And that's probably my 50th reading of it, and still as good as it always was.
I just finished Inheritance, and I have had kids home for spring break, so I have not picked up anything else yet.
Yeah. Inheritance was I went and listened to her NPR interview, and I guess she has a podcast now called The Secret, Sleeping with Secrets, which I'm intrigued by. I haven't listened to it yet, but I immediately finished that book on Sunday and told I called my parents. I was like, "It's here. This is your next." I'm always telling them what to read. I'm very bossy, and I was telling them that was the next book. They were both going to love it. Dad, what are you?
I'm reading the video as my son-in-law is teaching it.
Okay.
And I have just gotten to the, as he calls it, the weird part.
You're in for a wild ride.
Oh, walk first.
All right. Bridget, what are you reading?
My Woodward's here.
Oh, yeah. We talked about that last
Yeah.
time. Okay.
Definitely enjoying it. It
Yeah.
is a slow read for me because there's so much detail.
There is so much detail.
It's very good. Yes.
We're all waiting for this.
So after the last luncheon, I read several books that you said that you're reading around this 100 books. That was really good. Last night finished The Elephant in the Room.
Oh, yeah. Did you like it?
Yeah, yeah. And I think that tonight I'm going to start the Ruth Bader Ginsburg book,
Oh,
My Own Words.
Yes.
There have been so many good documentaries and good movies, so I kind of want
Time to do a deep dive into her. Oh, good. Okay.
I'm listening to The Inheritance.
Okay. I bet it's a good audiobook.
It is. It's very good. She's very dramatic about everything, it seems like.
Yeah.
It comes through in
Yes.
the audio. Kind of erratically reading Beneath the Scarlet Sky, but I'm really enjoying The Orphan of Salt Winds.
I heard that we talked about that briefly at the last literary lunch. Okay.
Very, kind of bounces back and forth between her childhood and being an elderly woman and the life that she lived. Yeah, Orphan of Salt Winds.
Orphan of Salt Winds.
It's very compelling.
Okay.
And I read Daisy Jones also and loved it.
Oh, good.
It's absolutely great. I love how it's written.
Yeah. That oral history format, I like an oral history, like online, or I read the SNL oral history. I'm not a huge Saturday Night Live person, but I found it fascinating. And I thought
And
it's
the way
so
they all
clever.
remember things so
Differently, that's what's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
can't
then, so the one that I actually just finished was, This Is Your Life, Harriet Chase.
Yeah.
It was cute.
That is a cute book.
Mhm.
A good, that's a vacation,
Yeah,
to me, that's a
yeah,
vacation novel,
Mhm.
and one that will make you as stressed, maybe as the ones I recommended. Vanessa.
I had a hard time picking a book. Truly, it was like there were literally 3 stacks of books, and I make it very intense. And which one to pick? No one understands me. Not my family. I have no support, and I'm leaving for spring break, and it's a long flight, so you really need a good book. So I hope I picked the right one. It's called Love Africa.
Okay.
It's by Jeffrey Mettelman.
Okay.
It's not it is whatever. Last name is a little Mettelman, I think. And he's a New York Times reporter, and it's a memoir, and it's a story about, starts from college, how he ended up going to Africa, his love for Africa, his his love life and the struggle between the two and how much he belongs in Africa.
Oh, interesting.
And it's, it looks good and it had to be not too big.
Yeah.
It
can be the
not like a
weight.
heavy.
Yeah, I get it.
So I would love something else you can, because I think it's gonna be a fun read.
Yeah, okay, I'll only think about that.
Think TSA, think
Right,
practical.
right, okay, let me think
Audio book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Saying that, I made a donation in the Atlanta airport of a book. For my favorite, thank goodness, I have another one in my, I had it completed tonight, so I still have yet to read that.
Okay.
I had a book fair, last night, a bunch of tattered covered.
Oh,
Yes,
it's a good story.
Loved it.
It's tattered
Tattered
cover
cover
bookstore.
bookstore, is an independent bookstore in Denver.
It's really good. It's in
Tattered
Denver.
cover.
It's the name of a bookstore.
Yeah, so I supported the Denver economy a little bit, in the great kids section.
Good. Yeah,
But
they
anyway,
are.
I bought Daisy Jones in the 6, which I got halfway through, and then I started Inheritance and finished it,
Uh-huh.
and then I couldn't go to our discussion.
Yeah.
And I also read Famous Father Girl, which is a biography of Leonard Bernstein
Oh, cool.
and
Okay.
his daughter.
Okay.
Last year was this.
I was about to say, I heard that was good.
Didn't read it last year, so I'm
Okay.
behind on that one, so.
Good.
those are my stories.
Fun. I always like to hear what people are reading. I will tell you, Olivia and I both finished, I think after maybe, I can't remember if we had just read it in time for Winter Literary Lunch, but The Current, if you haven't read it, I just feel like time's about to run out for you because it feels like a cold weather book to me. It does, and it doesn't feel like a spring one, so like read the sea. I don't mean to be bossy, but I run it out of time. But it's so good. And I don't know about you, but I have said this before on the podcast. I just don't like to read cold weather books when it's miserable because I just feel like you need to feel my misery with me. And so that book though takes place in Minnesota, and I could just feel it. I could just feel the cold. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? So you've got in front of you your literary guide, your luncheon guide, and then your pre-order sheet. So if anything appealed to you today, you can just take it to the register, and Olivia will take care of you. If you're listening online, there's a link for you. They're all available for you to purchase on the website with the discount code. Hooray! You'll get a discount code today. So I think that's about it, unless anybody has any follow-up.
I need to do a Daisy Jones book club.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, we did our Michelle Obama Community Book Club, and that was really good. And I thought we had a nice little group and a good discussion. So maybe Daisy Jones, I feel like there is a lot there to mine. Because the other thing is, in oral history, you don't expect the writing to be good, but there are some lines in that book that really kind of stick with you. So she's finally, I think, getting the praise she deserves. Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What is that?
I didn't know.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was another.